This is Introduction to AutoCAD and Civil 3D 3.3, Using Labels in Civil 3D. So when we're adding annotations to a civil drawing or a site plan, you're going to sometimes have to dimension it slightly different. And so because we're looking at that different picture, we're going to probably need a different set of tools. And the tool set we're using will allow us to not only dimension the distance of something, but like its direction, which is a really useful tool when you're dealing with information coming in like surveying and stuff like that in a site. So what we're going to use is what's called the line and curve labels. We find that on the Annotate tab. It's to the left of where we were putting in our dimensions. And if you click the Add Labels button, you got to kind of work your way down and add the line and curve label button. But what you'll notice is there's a lot of other things here. So there's specific labels for alignments, specific labels for pipe networks and things like that that you have access to. In our case, like I said, we're just doing lines and curves right now, and so we'll pick that one. It's going to open up a dialog box, and then there's going to be a couple different options. Right now we're going to do single segment, so that's basically you click on an individual segment, it gives you the data for that segment only. Whenever you click on this and all that, you want to pick a style. Now there's multiple styles we can pick from. We can customize our own styles. We'll do that at a later time. But right now we'll just pick the style that works for our needs. And so in our case, that'll be just the distance for the line segments and the radius for the curve segments. Once you determine the style, all you need to do is click on the Add button and then pick the segments of the drawing you wish to dimension. To get out of it, you hit the Escape button. Now I want to point out, we're going to be doing this in the model space, not the layout mode. Layout mode doesn't have a dim association for this type of labeling. So we're going to be in model space and labeling it. You can still see it in your layout mode, but you can't create it on that top level of layout mode. So we're going to be doing this in model space. So if one of the things that commonly happens is you'll be putting in one of these things and it'll put it on like the wrong side of the line or whatever. Well, if that's the case, all you have to do is select whatever label that comes in, right click, and you can flip it to the side of the line that you want it. And so that's a real easy way on how to edit something like that. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and open up, actually I'm going to continue with our previous drawing, but if not, when you're working on this, you can also open up example 2. And I'm going to go ahead and create some segments, some labels based on single segment option. And so I'll show you like a curve and a couple lines and all that, and then we can see what all we need to do and what styles we want to use whenever we're creating these labels. So we're going to do that in just a second. So here we are picking up where we were last time. Right now we're in layout mode. So what I'm going to do, I'll go ahead and switch over to model right now. And so here's our model design. And like I said, you'll notice there's no dimensions here because the first set of dimensions that we did in layout mode and used dim association as a way to tie it into what we did in model space. So now that we want to create our new labels, I'm going to come up to Annotate on the tab. To the left is Add Labels, and I'm going to come in here, and all the way down at the bottom is Line and Curve, and I want to add a Line and Curve label. Now if you look, there's a bunch of different styles. So we can do bearing over distance, we can use grade over distance, all these different things. Here's distance only, and then I'm going to set my curves to radius only, and that's it. It's not that hard. So now if I come in and go add, let's just kind of zoom down here, and I'll click right here, and there's that label. I can click on this curve right here. I can click up on this line, and it's going to give me the distance on each of those. And so that is a real easy way to put in this information. Now, if you ever have it come in and it doesn't put it where you want it, like it's on the wrong side or something like that, if you select it and right click, right here's the thing that says flip label, and it'll flip it around for your thing. So I lucked out here, but if this was on the opposite side, if it was like this and I wanted away from my design, trying to follow that clear and concise rule, I can click, right click, and then go flip label, and it'll just flip it to the opposite side. So real easy way to create labels and all for our design. So I said that it's a great option when you're trying to do a one-off or a simpler design and you don't have a lot of curves and lines and everything like this. It's real easy to label using a single label, but sometimes it gets a little bit tough to do it in a when you have a very complex design or you have a lot going on. Well, one of the other options that we can use is the multiple segment option, which will allow us to place labels along the entire feature without having to use multiple clicks. So you just click the line or segment of lines and they're all going to come in. But there's two things that we need to make sure of first. First off, the lines of the feature need to be a continuous set of segments. And the way you normally do this is you're either going to have a feature line that has it set up that way or a polyline. And we're going to talk about creating polylines in a little bit on another day, but you'll create a polyline. The other thing is the multiple segment label style is going to be a different set of settings from the single segment style settings. And you're like, what's the big deal? It actually is the exact same dialog box, but when you switch to multiple, it flips to a different set of styles. And so you want to make sure that you set those. And if you're trying to keep them consistent with your single segment style, to the same style. Otherwise, sometimes you'll end up with things that you don't want. So what we're going to do is we're just going to continue with the same thing. I'm going to get rid of the segments that I put in there as far as what their dimensions are, and I'm going to switch to a multiple segment on the label style, and then make sure my line and label style and my curve label style are set to what I did before. And then I can click in Add and put in the information. So let me show you how we're going to do that. So the first thing I need to do is I need to actually get rid of the ones that I already put in there because I don't want to double them up. So I'm just going to select it, and I can select them individually, or I can right click, and once I have one selected, hit select similar. Either way, I'll select them all and hit delete, and they're gone. All right, so now let's go with the multiple labels. So I'm going to go to Add Labels, Line and Curve, Add Line and Curve Labels. But right here, instead of single segment, I'm going to change it to multiple segment. And then right here, I have to change my preferences. So this is going to be distance only again. This is going to be radius only again. And now I'm ready to go. So I come in and click Add. I click the line, and in this case, this is a polyline. It's all one set of continuous segments. And so I click on it, and it's going to put in that information. And then I come over here. I click on this, it's going to put in that, and then finally over here. Now, there's something that you'll notice, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, but yeah, this is a little bit messy. So we're probably going to need to clean it up and all in our drawing. The other thing I want you to notice here is that these are set at a 1 to 40. If you look down here, it says 1 equals 40 scale. Let's go over and look at that in the layout. Well, they're still kind of cluttered, but they look better here. The reason why is if I double click in this window to open it, this is set to a 1 to 20 scale. Well, that's a different type of scale, and it actually looks a little bit better as far as how the lines are drawn. Let's come up back over to Model, and if I come down and switch this to 1 to 20, what you'll notice is they kind of resize just like the other one did. That's because this is an annotative scale, and we'll talk about that in a little bit in another video, but sometimes it makes it a little bit harder to control and to get your information because annotative is going to try to set your text height to be consistent in your view. And so the easiest way to deal with that is to just make sure that this is set to the exact same as this, and then you can kind of look and understand how it's going to lay out consistently. And so if this is 1 to 20, I'll come in here and set this to 1 to 20 and deal with that. If I'm doing something in these viewports, that scale is going to change, is going to be different, and then I need to adjust it there as well. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. So in our next video, we're going to use a set of tables to help clean up our design. And this means we need to create a new layout and be mindful of those scales in our viewport, because that can cause some problems. Scales can be a little tricky. The other thing that we're basically trying to do, and the reason why we're doing this, is I want to come back to stating that we're trying to stay clear and concise in our dimensions, but we don't want to overdo our dimensioning of the site in the process. And so this is going to be a balance that you'll eventually be able to work out some. You want to provide all the information they need to design it, but not give them too much information that it becomes cluttered and confusing to the people that are building. And we'll talk about that in the next video.